Hi, this is Bill Watkins. Thanks for taking a few minutes and looking into the Word of God. This is the time we spend in the Bible with Bill, and I'm Bill Watkins, so thank you for being here. You know, there's an interesting passage in Romans chapter 15, verse 7. If you read it in the New King James Version, it says, "Therefore receive one another, just as Christ also received us to the glory of God." That word receive means to accept one another. And so when you look in Romans chapter 15, verse 7 in the ESV, it says, "Therefore welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you." But another translation, which I think has it more accurately, says, "Accept one another just as Christ has accepted you." The word that is used there is proslambano. Proslambano is a combination of two Greek words, but what it means is to take to oneself or to accept. We are to take one another to ourselves. It's important that we learn to live in unity. It's important that we learn to obey God's command for unity. Jesus wanted all of us to be one, he said, as he is with the Father. He intends for us to be one. We're not going to be able to do that unless we accept one another. There's a very lengthy reading that we may not be able to read all of tonight in Romans chapter 14, beginning at verse 1 and all the way down through chapter 15, verse 7, where he talks about how to accept one another in the way that we should. And I want to break it down just a little bit. He talks about weak brethren who can be offended, and he talks about strong brethren who have understanding. Now, who's the weak in the faith? Well, he's the one who has doubts about certain things. Romans 14:1, "Receive one who is weak in the faith, but not to dispute over doubtful things." The weak brethren under consideration in that case were people who ate only vegetables. He says, "For one believes that he can eat all things, but the one who is weak eats only vegetables." In other words, they had a problem eating meat in any kind because they were afraid it might have been sacrificed to idols. And therefore they would stumble over meat and wine. And in Romans chapter 14, verse 21, he says, "It's good neither to eat meat or drink wine or do anything by which your brother stumbles or is offended or made weak." He doesn't mean that they were ignorant. He simply means that their understanding was not the same as the person who understood the things that are acceptable by God. The strong in the faith he describes in verse 3 of chapter 14 as the one who knows that God has accepted him. He said, "Let not him who eats despise him who does not, and let not him who does not judge him who eats, for God has accepted him." The person who is strong in the faith knows what the Lord has revealed, and that's in verse 14 and again in verse 20. He says, "Do not destroy the work of God for the sake of food. All things indeed are pure, but it is evil for the man who eats with offense," or with a bad conscience. The person who is strong in the faith believes he can eat everything that he wants to eat. He can observe any day that he wants to observe, and he doesn't condemn himself in what he approves. But here's what he says about that. How does the strong brother who knows that it's okay to celebrate certain days, that it's okay to eat certain foods, and others who think that it's not, how do you get along? He says in verse 3 of Romans 14, "Don't despise the one who does not eat, and do not let him who eats judge him who does not eat." Here's the point, is that we, first of all, simply accept that we see things sometimes differently. God has revealed that what we do, whether we eat or whether we don't eat, is acceptable to God. Nothing is to be refused if it's received with thanksgiving. So what do we do in the process of that? That if I choose to be a vegetarian because I believe that eating meats is somehow wrong, accept me. If I eat meat and you're a vegetarian and believe that eating meats is somehow wrong, accept the fact that God accepts me, I accept you. We learn to get along with one another. All of us are not always going to see things exactly the same way. That's just the way the world works. It's just the way human beings are. Is there a revealed truth? Absolutely. Have all of us come to a full understanding of that revealed truth? Absolutely not. And until we do, in the process, we are the children of God, held in the grace of God, and guided by the Word of God. And therefore, because we're disciples of Jesus together, let's accept one another. That's what they did in the first century. That's what we need to do today. Today, try to accept one another in the fear of God. Thanks for watching.